What's up, gentlemen? Joshua Hall here. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to the channel. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Help me out with the algorithm. And as you can see by the title of this video, we are going to get into the best Asian countries, specifically for black men, but this will also apply to the less melaninated people and to the light-skinned brothers like myself, because I know undoubtedly some of you are gonna say, I look Latino, or I don't even know, Egyptian. I get all kinds of stuff. Apparently I look like everything except for a black person, but the hair kind of gives it away. Anyway, with that little tangent aside, let's get into this video, and spoiler alert, I'm not going to be talking about Thailand, the Philippines, or Vietnam, because those places are played out. Everyone knows about these places, and frankly, the biggest attraction to most of these places, for the most part, are the fact that they are cheap. And so I'm going to give you 3 lesser known destinations that you will absolutely love. Now, before revealing these places, I want to give you some disclaimers, especially for some of my darker skinned brethren out there. First and foremost, the level of English in these places is not going to be particularly high. So there's undoubtedly going to be more of a language barrier than in Thailand, Vietnam, and certainly the Philippines. That is very true. These places also are not going to be nearly as inexpensive as a place like the Philippines and, to a lesser extent, Thailand. But that doesn't mean they are going to be particularly expensive. One bonus destination I will give you is kind of expensive. And then finally, despite what you may have heard, there is a decent, I wouldn't say decent chance, but there is racism in some of these countries. Here's how I feel about that. About 20% of the population, I don't know, I'm just throwing a random number out there, not gonna like you. But they aren't gonna try and or do anything bad to you. They just won't like you. And so it's not gonna be like the 1800s where, you know, crazy stuff was happening to black people. That's not how it's gonna be. I mean, these people do not like confrontation. You need to realize that. And so your best bet, probably gonna be going to like dating apps or clubs that play rap or hip hop music, because that's probably where the people who are into your skin color are gonna be. You can also obviously do cold approach, but then the language barrier, and there is a chance that obviously they just won't be feeling you, which is a risk you might be willing to take. But I would suggest, especially for first-timers, dating apps and going to clubs that are known for rap/hip-hop music. So with all those disclaimers aside, there are some other things you need to know. Not gonna be a lot of tourists there, especially tourists looking like you. Another thing you're going to need to know is that, in my opinion, some of these women are going to be the most feminine women in the world. And some of these women are going to be the most traditional/conservative in the world. But just because they're traditional/conservative doesn't mean they aren't looking for a good time. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into these 3 places. So the first place is going to be South Korea. I believe I've talked about this in one of my Thailand videos, maybe not. But South Koreans, in my opinion, probably the most attractive Asians on the planet. They are the thickest, I would say, if you know what I mean, of the Asians, and in my opinion, the prettiest. Little bit more traditional and conservative culture, but like I said, you can go to any of these places and find a good time. Women are extremely feminine there. I absolutely adore and love South Korean women. Some of the best women on the planet, in my opinion. I would personally recommend Seoul. Second, I'm gonna go with Japan, specifically Tokyo, but there are other places like Osaka and some other places you can go that are going to be significantly less expensive than Tokyo. Tokyo, great nightlife, extremely feminine and attractive women as well. a little bit more on the petite side, and they do tend to be a little bit lighter skinned than the South Koreans in my experience. And they might be more attractive in the facial area, but that is a personal preference kind of thing. And for my money, Japan is a great place to be. I should also point out that all these places have great infrastructure as well as great food, and they're all extremely, extremely safe. And then finally, I'll give you a 2-for-1, and that is going to be Taiwan, specifically Taipei, and Hong Kong. Now, Taipei, probably gonna be the most boring of these options, but definitely the least touristy. I had an absolute blast in Taipei. Highly, highly recommend it. And since I just told you it's the least touristy, there is by far the least amount of tourists there. The major con is that obviously right by China, and China has some feelings toward Taiwan. So for that, I wouldn't recommend moving there long term, but for a visit or an extended trip, I would highly recommend checking it out. Now, Hong Kong, some of the best food in the world, however, going to be quite expensive in my experience. It's been a few years since I've been there, so I'm sure it's probably only gotten more expensive, but it is one of the best cities in the entire world. I had an absolute blast. And I should mention Taipei, probably going to have the least amount of English spoken. None of these places are going to be particularly heavy on the English, but you are going to be relying a lot on your translator app if you go to Taipei, in my experience. All right, so that's gonna wrap up this video. If you have any experience in these countries, drop a comment down below. Let us know what it was like for you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, help me out with the algorithm. And as always, peace, much love.